Behind all the headlines and the press conferences about the US-Iran conflict, there's a completely different story. And this one isn't told with words, but with some truly staggering numbers and, well, some pretty alarming strategic failures. Today, we're going to unpack the real costs of this war, and what we've uncovered is pretty shocking. Let's just dive right in with the big one. $1 billion. That single number, right there, is really the key to understanding the sheer scale of what's been going on. And here's the thing, that $1 billion, that's not for the whole war. It's not even for a week. That's the estimated price tag for every single day of this conflict. And believe me, that eye-watering number is really just the tip of the iceberg. Now, publicly, the official story we've been hearing is that this is a contained, a manageable operation. But as soon as you start digging into the raw financial data, a very, very different and much more expensive picture starts to take shape. I mean, just look at this chart. It shows you how explosive the spending has been. In just the first 6 days, the cost hit over $11 billion. And to date, it's already blown past $35 billion. All while that daily burn rate keeps humming along at $1 billion a day. Okay, but let's move on because the real financial damage goes so far beyond just the day-to-day spending. You really have to start looking at the high-value assets, the actual hardware that's been lost in the fighting. And the list of what's been destroyed is significant. We're talking about some of America's most advanced and most expensive military equipment. We're talking frontline fighter jets, sophisticated drones, and absolutely critical support aircraft like tankers and those airborne warning systems. This table really puts those losses into perspective. I mean, we are not talking about small stuff here. This is billions of dollars in cutting-edge technology that was just wiped out in the first few weeks. The destruction of those critical radar systems alone, that's valued at over $1.2 billion. And beyond all the money and the machines, there is, of course, a very real human cost. The latest Pentagon data shows that at least 13 U.S. service members have been killed, and the number of wounded is now approaching 400. But the financial and human costs, as truly steep as they are, might not even be the most startling revelation to come out of this conflict. What we're about to look at is a fundamental breach in America's famous military defenses, a moment that has raised some very serious questions. Just take a look at the incredible mismatch on this slide. On one side, you've got an Iranian F-5 fighter jet, a design that first flew in 1959. On the other, the U.S. Patriot system, a modern, multi-layered, state-of-the-art air defense network. On paper, it seems absolutely impossible that one could get past the other. And yet, it happened. In what was a truly unprecedented attack, an aging Iranian F-5 flew in super low, exploiting known gaps in the radar coverage. It completely bypassed the interceptors and successfully dropped a bomb on Camp Buehring in Kuwait. This was the first time an enemy plane has successfully struck a U.S. military base since the Korean War. Let that sink in. And this vulnerability wasn't just some one-off lucky shot. No, it was part of a pattern. Iran was systematically targeting the eyes of the U.S. defense network. They destroyed an advanced THAAD radar in Jordan and damaged other critical early warning systems in Saudi Arabia and Qatar. The damage wasn't just physical, though. This conflict has created a critical, almost invisible strain on America's most important resource, its ability to fight the next war. According to a really sobering assessment from the Center for Strategic and International Studies, that's CSIS, the intense combat has just chewed through a staggering amount of the military's most advanced munitions. We're seeing dangerously low levels of everything, from long-range cruise missiles to the interceptors we need to defend against them. To really put this in perspective, sources estimate the U.S. Navy fired close to 1,000 Tomahawk cruise missiles. That is nearly a quarter of the entire U.S. arsenal. Now, get this. The proposed defense budget for 2025, it included the purchase of just 57 new Tomahawks. The math, it just doesn't work. And that CSIS report makes the stakes crystal clear. This isn't a quick fix. They're saying it would take years just to get back to where we were, creating a massive short-term risk that could undermine U.S. readiness in other critical parts of the world for a long, long time. So this all leads to a pretty crucial question, right? If the damage, the strategic costs, and the risks are all this severe, why haven't we heard more about it? And that brings us to the other war being fought, the war over the narrative. Early in the conflict, the official statements coming from the top were all about projecting total confidence and control. The public was basically assured that, sure, Iran might try some things, but U.S. defenses were more than ready to handle it. No problem. But the reality on the ground, which has been pieced together from tons of different reports and sources, it paints a starkly different picture. The F-5 strike, it happened. Those critical radars, they were hit. In total, over 100 targets were struck across 11 bases, with some reportedly left all but uninhabitable. And to make the picture even more complicated, multiple reports have alleged that there was an active effort to manage public perception. These sources say the White House actually asked private satellite companies to hold off on publishing imagery that would show the full extent of the damage, which, in effect, created an information blackout. And this lack of transparency has apparently extended to Congress, too. Congressional aides have said that for weeks, they've been asking for specific damage assessments, and the Pentagon has simply refused to provide the details, even as it's asking for a record-high budget. So, we're left with this clear and frankly troubling gap. On one side, you have the public narrative of a controlled, successful conflict. And on the other, you have this mountain of data suggesting severe, long-term costs. It leaves us with one final provocative question. What else is still being hidden from view?